Welcome to Plant the Love. We are going to talk about fostering wellness through the power of natural plants and positive mental health practices. I am your host, Ashley Rawson. On our show, you're going to hear from folks who have a lot of knowledge and expertise about this sneaky little subject. If you're curious if this path is right for you, you have come to the right place. We will empower you with information to make healthy, life-changing choices. We're so glad you're here. Now on to the episode. Disclaimer. The content in this show is for informational purposes only. It is not intended for medical advice. It does not take the place of treatment by a medical health professional. Listeners and viewers should consult with their doctor or medical health professional with any medical concerns. I am not a doctor. However, we do work closely with doctors when we review medications. I do not have a medical degree of any kind. What we are discussing has been in no way approved by the FDA. What I am sharing with you has been from my own experience and research. If you are taking any medication, do not make any changes until you consult your doctor. And now, let's start the Plant the Love show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Plant the Love. I'm your host, Ashley, on NGBN TV. Welcome, so glad you're back. We have a very special guest today. We have an individual from Oscity Labs who I absolutely fell in love with. The moment I met him, I knew he was a genius. And I had the opportunity to go to Alabama, tour this fantastic facility. You could eat off the floor. It was so clean. So I know that it was medical grade, high quality products, not to mention the dialogue that we began to have when I realized that, my focus is to foster wellness through plant-based medicine. And we have located one of, if not the very best providers of hemp-based medicine. Welcome, Chris.
This is an honor. I appreciate all those nice things you said about our facility. That's really sweet of you. Thank you.
I was blown away, and I've been to a bunch. I've been to California, Kentucky. I've been several in California, Kentucky, Oklahoma. I've seen them all. There wasn't even anything close that touched what you have going on there. And then I was even more, when we start talking about the fact that not only do you do a beautiful job extracting, which is an art in and of itself, but the genetics of the seed. It was all.
Yeah. So what you've said is kind of what attracted me to this position when Oscity was getting up and started. I've seen dozens of these facilities as well. And I'm from the area that they're building this facility in originally. I was out in Colorado working in the hemp space for almost a decade before they got me from Colorado and brought me back home. But I'd seen all these facilities, and they told me they were building one in southern Alabama near my hometown. I was like, okay, I'll come see the garage that you built your facility in, and I'll give you some pointers. And then I walked in and just drugged my jaw across the floor the entire time. It was, without a doubt, one of the most impressive infrastructure and engineering projects I've seen in the CBD space. And right then and there, I was like, yes, I absolutely want to be a part of this.
And I know we can't talk about it, but I know there's some very big names that have found you all as well.
Yeah, we've recently gotten the chance to work with a lot of really well established CBD and other cannabinoid producers here in the United States. And so far, the business relationships have been going great. So as a company that maybe has a multi-year delay from starting from some of these other companies across the country, we're really excited with where we're at now and what we've been able to accomplish in a short amount of time. And we hope for great things from Oscity in the future.
You're nailing it. So that people can understand, if you're looking for a hemp CBD product, there are so many factors that you should be considering before you buy an $80, $225, $200 bottle, $300 bottle of hemp CBD. So many factors that you need to consider. There's full spectrum, there's broad spectrum. And then, Chris, help them understand why it is that when you walked in, you knew this place is phenomenal. I walked in, I knew it was phenomenal. All these on the market. Why is Oscity so spectacular?
So I'll say that while the engineering was impressive, what makes Oscity spectacular is really the people. All the nicest machines in the world won't help you pay more attention to details when you're making something. It may give you a data log, but it's not going to give you that firsthand witness account when you're actually producing the product. So I think we've been able to cultivate a really, really good team, high level of attention to detail. And that doesn't just start when we make products, for example. We're a vertically integrated company. So we have a couple 100-acre farm up in Bruton where we do a lot of our growing. And Ray French, our CEO, manages a lot of the genetic selections and the growing for what we're doing. And so by paying attention to that detail and then paying attention to how we extract it and paying attention to the concentration of the distillate in the finished products, by paying attention to flavor consistency, just all those things that they all seem like minute details, but missing any one or some of any of them can have a really bad effect on the product. So I think we've really cultivated a team here that wants to make the best product that we can possibly make.
Okay, so let's talk quickly, CO2 butane extraction. Obviously, big investment on one hand, not so big on the other. Great medicine, not so great. CO2 extraction, why is that important? Why is that an important question to ask people when you buy CBD?
Well, anytime you're buying a CBD product, you want to make sure it's rigorously tested. So one of the things Oscity does is we have a 7-test panel where we test for potency, microbials, heavy metals, terpenes, pesticides, mycotoxins. There's a big panel that we test on every finished goods batch that we run. And what we've kind of found is butane in some cases will leave residual solvents. Well, residual solvents from CO2, from a supercritical CO2 extraction, 70% of what you're breathing is CO2. So the residual solvent effect there is obviously going to be much less of a danger for anybody who's taking a CO2 product. Yes, much cleaner. I think you've seen some of our distillates that we produced that will, as we're pouring them out of the heater, they'll crystallize in the container. So yeah, and so when we hit that's when we really know we're doing things right, is when we see certain parameters start to come to life right in front of us. And that just kind of lets us know, hey, you're heading the right direction here. You're, for this particular process, you're nailing this.
And then quickly, what's your opinion on water soluble versus oil based? I totally have my opinion, but my opinion is, I'll just throw it out there, you got to have the oil for it to bind. Water soluble, you can feel it, but I don't know. I mean, what's your feeling on water soluble?
My biggest problem with water soluble is CBD is not water soluble. And so in order to make it water soluble, you have to create what they call they're ligands that essentially wrap around the CBD molecule. And these all have a hydrophilic shell. And so you've got this shell basically built around everything that you're trying to absorb. I've seen great absorption data for water. And so it's not that I just believe we don't need to add anything to the plant. The plant comes out of the ground in a really, really, really good state. If we can extract it as is, purify it, make sure there's nothing in it, heavy metals, anything left in it, then that's the state that it should stay in. Especially when you're going to be consuming finished goods. Oh, I'm sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
No, I was just saying we extracted it out of the plant as an oil. And what they're basically doing is taking that beautiful oil and they're making it they're synthesizing it.
You'll have, the highest concentration I think I've ever seen on a water soluble powder is 26 or 27% CBD. Whereas our distillates will consistently test in low 90s to mid 90s for CBD. So it's a different raw material that you're using for the base good.
It's a totally different raw material. And yes, you can feel water soluble. Yes, it probably works. But if you're teaching people about the endocannabinoid system, which is a system of cells in our bodies that regulates inflammation, and you learn about that, in order for the cannabinoid to bind to that system of cells, it does need an oil. And when we do the water soluble, you just changed it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It just takes your body longer to pop that shell off. So you might get a higher uptake quickly because of where you're absorbing it. But I have no problem with water soluble products. People who are making them in GMP environments and testing them efficiently and making sure that they're getting quality product, I have no problem with people wanting to take a water soluble. I personally think it's better to take the
Old
distillates as they
school.
come off the plant.
Old school. Go
Yeah.
old school. Absolutely. Why are you, like you said, they're putting a shell around it.
Right.
We have enough shells around our food and everything else that we take. We just need, and then one thing that I like to mention that most people don't know, eating raw cannabis, raw hemp or marijuana, either or, more phytonutrients than kale. Have you heard that?
I have not, but we do a lot of testing for different types of health, what we consider healthy omega sixes, which
Yes.
are the fatty acids that would come inside the hemp plant, and we do see them in really high quantities. We pull a lot off during extraction. So yes, I've absolutely heard that there are a lot of really healthy fats inside the plant as
the
well.
omega, just so everybody knows what we're talking about, the omegas that they're pulling in the lab is fish oil. It's from hemp.
Yes, it's an omega-6, not an omega-3. But the omega-6s are very, very good for you. You can usually find them in like avocados and, oh God, I'm drawing a blank. But there's a lot of other foods on the planet that will give you a good dose of omega-6s. Hemp just happens to be one of them.
And it nourishes the earth.
It's great. That's what I tell people, Ashley. Like, this plant is really incredible. I don't feel like I should make any changes to it. Like, who am I to start messing with creation? That's it's that way for a reason. I want to make sure we get it off the plant that way and give it to our customers that way.
And you've been in this industry for many years.
Yeah, almost a decade. Yeah. So I helped start a company in Colorado that really rode the boom from 2015 to 20, it's still in business today. And took over at Oscity as the director of operations in 2022, one of those. But I've been there for about 2.5, 3 years almost. So yeah, 2021 is when I took over, October. So yeah, I've been doing this for quite a long time, and I've done everything from extraction to product development to business development, GMP certification. I've now done that for 2 separate CBD companies. And that puts me in decent rarefied air. I don't know that many operators have certified 2 companies. There's a lots that have done 1, but having done 2 GMP from scratch certifications for 2 separate companies has really given me a deep respect for the food laws, the dietary supplement production laws. There's a lot in there that a lot of hemp producers just think doesn't apply to them, but it will, and we need to act like it should. So that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and they know. Yeah, I mean, you're a genius. I couldn't believe the amount of knowledge that you had, that you brought, and it was interesting that you actually came home.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I've got a 7-year-old, and his grandmother lives here, and she wasn't seeing a whole lot of them when we were living, a 24-hour drive away. So, yeah, it was a tough decision because, like I said, I was doing great in Colorado. Loved the company that I was working for, but actually, you've seen the facility, there may be a half dozen in the country that look anything like it. And so we definitely have a great board of directors who's invested a lot of their money in getting us up to a point where we can be in this position as a company. So we kind of stand on the shoulders of giants here. Like, we're allowed to do these things because there's so many people that have come before us and kind of paved the way for us.
I want to give a little bit more credit to your educational background. Can you let everybody know a little bit about what is your education background, and then share why did you get into this industry?
Sure. So I went to undergraduate school for chemistry, and then went to graduate school for analytical chemistry. I'm sorry? Yeah, for analytical chemistry.
Yes.
I graduated with a whole lot of other people, and some of them not so genius. But no, I mean, I graduated for undergrad chemistry, and then went to graduate school for analytical chemistry. I actually got into this industry in a pretty weird way. Me and my wife moved to Colorado to kind of start to grow our careers and look for opportunities. I took a position at a very fancy wine bar. So I was working as a sommelier / bartender for a wine bar out there. Ended up meeting the chairman of the board for the company that ended up going on to kind of ride that hemp boom. He had trouble with the guy doing his extraction, and he knew I had a degree in chemistry. He was coming in on a fairly regular basis, and I talked to him and said, "Look, I'm not making a ton as a sommelier. If you just want to match this, I'll come extract for you. 90 days from now, if you're not happy, I'll come back and I'll serve wine again. And I've been doing it for 10 years. So it was kind of go ahead.
Did you know then the healing power? Did you know then when you were getting involved just how healing it was? So you got into the industry as a career opportunity and then began to learn, see, hear all of the miracles that we hear.
Yes, and I've heard dozens of them, especially through my former company, now my new company. We have those testimonials come through all the time. No, I actually came much more from like a chemical manufacturing background where I don't necessarily have feelings about the product. I just need to make it, and I need to make it right. That was always my. So I'll give you a quick story, and then but the original founder for the company I worked at in Colorado, he ended up slipping on some ice out there, hurt his knee really, really bad, went to a CBD store, got some salve, worked great for him. He put it all over his knee. He said he was walking fine, inflammation was down. He went back about 4 or 5 days later to get some more. They were sold out of that one. So he bought another one, took it back home, rubbed it all over his knee. Not a thing. Didn't work at all. And so he actually went and had them tested and for cannabinoids in Denver. And took them to a lab and found out one was a 30% overdosed and one had almost nothing in it at all. And so he wanted to fix that problem from day one. So when he brought me on, his one of his biggest instructions to me was, we want to give the people what they're paying for, and we want them to be able to trust the dose that they're getting out of these products. And that's something that's really carried with me all throughout my career in the hemp industry is, let's make sure that we're getting it right for the customer, because they're the ones that are going to be looking for consistency, for relief, for sleep when they need to fall asleep. And if, there's nothing more frustrating. You take something to fall asleep and 2 hours later, you're still sitting there staring at the ceiling. So, doing that for the customers to make sure that we get the products as accurately dosed as possible has always been a big thing for us. And then consistent as well. Not just potency, but flavor. Yeah, flavor too. Like so many people miss out. 2 batches of chocolate chip cookies.
We're going to take a quick break so we can get a little bit of Oscity love, show them some love. And make sure that you use the coupon code for 20% off Plant the Love. Here's a little word from Oscity, where we've got Chris visiting with us today.
Over the last several years, the hemp industry has exploded. And Oscity is a company from the South taking charge of this new frontier. We start with our own world-class plant genetics and use organic and sustainable farming practices to nurture our seedlings into top-quality flower. Our award-winning team uses a state-of-the-art extraction process to isolate not just CBD, but other complementary cannabinoids like CBG and CBC. We remove impurities and then have our own in-house analysis team check and recheck the accuracy of our extracted distillate that goes into our finished products. Our CBD distillate is over 95% pure. Its integrity is unrivaled. We are the industry standard for purity, quality, and consistency. We have a variety of skin gels, edibles, and tinctures. Try our brand out for yourself, and you'll know what quality really means.
So last week, I opened these up, and I was kind of frantic, and the bottles that I had open were behind me, and the bottles that were not open were in front of me. So this time, at least, I'm actually putting it because, it's heaven.
Right. That cooling gel is so nice.
Heaven. Let me tell you what I'm smelling, folks, just so you can go and order yours right now. Lemongrass, frankincense, spearmint, eucalyptus, white camphor. The fact that you pulled camphor was brilliant. Neem, gourd, eggplant, basil, turmeric, seaweed. This is just the topical. So they have 2. You have the Fahrenheit hemp cooling gel, and then you also have the Fahrenheit heating gel. Now let's go briefly into why I am nuts about your oils. They're fabulous. You have 3 different kinds. You wanted and you guys isolated the cannabinoids. So the calm is phenomenal. What makes your calm so spectacular?
So when we were designing our lines, we wanted to kind of highlight more of our capabilities as a company than just being able to make CBD. So we wanted to some of the chromatography that we have access to, and the ability to separate those minor cannabinoids off the distillate and kind of control dosing on each one of those. So we looked for cannabinoids that highlight the effect for the product that we're trying to create. And so the best way to explain that is like your calm tincture. So CBG is what they call the mother of all cannabinoids. When you're growing your plant, CBG is the precursor to THC, CBDs, CBC. There's all kinds of cannabinoids that start as a CBGA molecule. So that mother cannabinoid actually has a really great calming effect without so much of the heady feeling that you would get from some of the other ones. And so we wanted to incorporate that into the tincture to make sure that the effect was kind of targeted at what kind of relief are you looking for? Do you have a little bit of over anxious thoughts and you want to just calm those down a little bit? Calm would be the great one for you. When we also were looking at other cannabinoids in the space, and we're looking specifically when Ray had a specific strain that was growing CBDV, which is a bivarin molecule, and that's THCV. Yeah, I love that. So energy, actually, if you look at the bivarin molecules, they typically have less of that downer effect and more of that get you moving, get your blood pumping kind of thing. So we added some of the bivarin, the CBD bivarin, to our energy tincture. And then on the last one we were looking for is sleep. Seems to be one of the main things that people take either hemp or cannabis products for. And so there is a molecule called CBN, which is a sedative, but very mildly psychotropic. So it's going to be far, far less than a D9 molecule would be, but it's also going to give you that sedative effect that's going to help you kind of bring you down into sleep. So for the sleep line specifically, we added CBN in addition to the CBD distillate that we're using as the main background of the product.
And so everyone understands all of the cannabinoids that Chris has mentioned, the CBG, CBN, CBC, okay, these are not containing THC. So if you say the word THC, remember I said on my first lesson, there are 141 cannabinoids. THC
that we know of.
One.
Yeah.
So he's talking about CBG, CBC. So when you say CBD, so that everyone understands, that's a generality of hundreds that do specific things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of families of cannabidiol, but CBD specifically is cannabidiol. You can talk about cannabinoids in general, and that's the family of like 150.
Right.
And by the way, we're learning more and more about these every day, and actually seeing new ones pop up every day that as people get better with genetics and breeding, we're seeing all kinds of new ones pop up. The biggest problem there is we don't have enough people doing human trials. We really, really, really need doctors, nurses, hospitals who are licensed to do these kind of trials to contact one of your extractors, find some isolated material, and develop a program so that you can take a look at some of the effects of these. What we're seeing is they're not all the same, and they do drastically different things. So the medical community
is trial if you're not comparing the same consistent product, the way that it's extracted, the way that it's grown, the way that it's.
Yeah, you got to go to a good extraction house. Like that's one of my biggest worries as we start to study some of these cannabinoids is that someone publishes a paper and they're talking about the effects of CBD isolate, for example. I get a sample of that isolate, I run my test, and I found out it's got 4 or 5% of this other cannabinoid in there. Well, that's really going to throw off the results of your study. And so if you don't have good quality control from your provider of the raw material, your study's probably not worth anything in the first place. So make sure if someone is doing a study, make sure you go to a highly reputable raw material supplier.
What are you all hearing as far as it going from Schedule 1 to a 3 with this administration? Are you hearing it? Because it seemed like for a while we were getting a lot of momentum, and now it just sort of out of the news cycle.
I wish we have a general counsel that I love to talk to about this stuff, and but I'll answer the best I can with the caveat that I am not a lawyer and spend a whole lot of time in the lab and not reading articles. So, but the last thing we heard about it was the Schedule 3 was recommended by one of the agencies. I want to say it was the FDA,
Probably.
And then the DEA was pushing back on that.
Correct, they were.
Okay, so yeah, that's kind of where I know it stands right
Okay.
now. And Schedule 3 puts us squarely in the jaws of a completely different industry. And so I'm actually more of a proponent for descheduling than I am for rescheduling. But at the same time, these guys get paid a lot of money to make those decisions. I'll make sure those doctors get a chance to take a look at the health and human studies before they make a recommendation about what schedule they should be putting this on.
And I agree with you. If it were my way, just deschedule it. Don't make it more complicated. But,
I agree.
You know, they got to have somebody put their key in. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we are already out of time. That's how fast
No
this
kidding.
goes. Yes, it goes that fast.
Wow.
I wish that we could talk to more, about more of it specifically. But if you go to Oscity's website, it is phenomenal. It's got all kinds of information. And let me also point out, not only do they isolate the cannabinoids specifically, but their topicals include essential oil, which is something that's also very, very rare in products because the power of the plant, not just the hemp, but the essential oils themselves, which is just marvelous.
Yeah. We believe it. Kind of that whole plant approach, just like you, Ashley. So,
yeah, exactly. So I appreciate you coming on. Thank you
absolutely.
for sharing, everything about Oscity and the wonderful things that you guys are doing. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in again to week 4. I can't believe it's already been week 4. I hope you're learning as much as we're loving to share. Everybody have a fantastic day and be sure to plant the love.